Game over, man. Game over. Johnny.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
So serious.
Roll out.
I am Iron Man.
This is a tasty burger.
Welcome to the In Session Film Podcast.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Chasing the Gold. I'm Shadan Larkey and I'm, as always, joined by my illustrious and beloved co-host, Erica Richards. Erica, hello.
Hello, my dear. How are you?
I'm good. So I'm so excited to dive into a lot of things with you today. But today we're doing comedies. We kind of wanted to take a look at like the big movies that have come out that could be a part of the awards consideration. And obviously comedies, you know, they don't get as much whatever, but you know, there's always the Globes, there's sort of critics groups that touch on comedies, Critics' Choice itself. So I feel like there's definitely some awards potential here. And I wanted to kind of start with the big movie of the weekend, which was Fall Guy, which I know you really liked. So tell me your experience of seeing it and then just like your thoughts, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. So this is one I've been looking forward to since like I saw that it was, you know, announced. I think a lot of what we're going to talk about today is like rom-com specific, right? Like not just comedy, but like rom-com. And I think there's a lot to be said for like the comeback of the rom-com. Like I feel like we were at its height in like the 90s and 2000s, and then it just kind of like wasn't a thing for a while. And I feel like we're like in a comeback with it, which I'm so here for. I think everyone loves a rom-com, whether they want to fully admit it or not. A lot of times it's like usually a safe watch, and I think that's like what attracts people to it. But I love a good rom-com, and like some of my favorites from when I was like first getting into movies could probably be labeled as rom-coms, like something like Clueless, that's one of my like all time. So anyways, I was really excited because obviously Ryan Gosling, right? And I've been a Ryan Gosling fan for a really long time. Like I was one of those people that was like obsessed with The Notebook. I was like barely 14 when it came out or whatever. And I like went to the theater 3 times to see it. I was like really obsessed with it. And he's just like truly having his moment right now. And I love that for him. And I think Emily Blunt is super charming and I really like her. I like her in pretty much everything I've seen her in. So the two of them I was really excited for when they were on SNL. When Ryan Gosling was on SNL and they like did the monologue thing together, like I was like, oh, this is like this movie's gonna kill. Everyone's gonna go see it. But I will say I was super excited for it, but I was kind of like, oh, I don't want this to be like disappointing. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be like, I'm trying to think of what I could compare it to. Like, I was excited. What was that? Sandra Bullock, Channing Tatum, like Brad Pitt rom-com that came out.
Oh my God, I know. I've seen it.
The
Lost City. The Lost City.
Yeah. Like that, I was like, oh, okay, this is like, I just want to go and like, it's like escapism, right? And so I was kind of like, oh, is this going to be like that? But I felt like this had a really good like plot and story, and like it was suspenseful, which I love. I love suspense. Suspense is my favorite. So like honestly, like Ryan Gosling is the most charming person on the planet. Like he is so charming. Like whether he's being himself or he's acting, like it's just like he just oozes like charisma and charm, and honestly, like Emily Blunt was super charming too. I thought she was lovely in this and like funny, and like she had good timing, and like she was really good too. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Like I thought the pacing was really well done. I thought it was genuinely funny. Like I don't know about you, but I saw it in a super crowded theater. And you saw it at South by, and which you can change the experience. We talked about that, but honestly, like my theater was cracking up, like, and it was like genuine, and I loved it. Like honestly, I can't wait to watch it again. I've just been like recommending it to everyone. I saw it last night, so I've been recommending it to the one person I saw this morning. So I love
Yeah,
it like
when
swept me off my
you
feet.
I was really worried. So my tweets out of South by were like very high on it, and
Yeah.
I didn't get a chance to see it this weekend. I'm definitely going to go see it again at some
Yeah.
point. But I was worried because I was like, what if like Erica, you kind of like, what if I hyped it up too much for her? So when you texted
Yep.
me that you really enjoyed it, I felt like this like relief of like, okay, we're on the same page.
Yes.
But no, I loved it, and I will stand by like my initial reaction, which is the kind of movie that you could recommend to absolutely
Yeah.
anyone, and I
Yeah.
feel like they would get something out of it. And actually,
100%.
before we hopped on here, I was talking to like one of my best friends who's like not a movie guy, and he told me that he just took himself on a date to go see it, and he loved it, and he was like, I had the best time with it, and I think like it represents the best thing that I like, and we both talked to like we felt giddy after watching it, and I
Mhm.
think like that's like the best thing about like going to the movies when you just watch
Oh my
something
god.
that makes you smile and
Yeah.
like just you just have a good time, and that's like what it represents. It represents like going to the movies, getting your like popcorn and just like letting the silliness take over and having a lot of fun. And I will say like there's been a lot of talk over the weekend because the movie did not do the numbers that people
Mm.
were expecting, and there's a lot of talk as to why. And I think to me it boils down to like people are probably a lot of issues, but maybe they're saving their like money for what they perceive to be an event film, and probably they're thinking it's a Universal film, it's going to be on Peacock in a month or two or whatever. But I promise you, like watching it at home is not going to be the same experience. And I think this is very much an event film. I mean, it has like
Yeah.
everything. It has the comedy, the action. It's really charming. I mean, the set pieces, in my opinion, are really good.
Yeah.
People have been calling it, like a love letter to
Yeah.
stuntmen and stunts,
Yeah.
which it absolutely is. And that was one of my favorite aspects of the movie, was kind of seeing like how they incorporate the stunts and how they do it. There's a lot of things that I didn't know. I'm assuming a lot of people don't know about how
Yeah.
all those things are coordinated. So that was really fun. So I hope as word of mouth spreads, more people go out to see it, because it absolutely is worth the money and just
Yeah.
solid all around.
Yeah. I love that you said your friend took himself out on a date, and to your point that like this is a movie that's for everyone. I do think it is a perfect like date night film for like a partner who loves the rom-coms and a partner who loves the action. And I think like you said, it has something for everyone in it. It's funny, it's witty, it's got the action, it's quick. Like I said, like sometimes I've found, especially with like this rom-com drama, whatever, like lately, is that it kind of drags a little bit at some point. Like at some point you're like, okay, like let's just get to the end. Like I know what's gonna happen here. And I didn't feel that way at all with this one. I like I said, it was like suspenseful enough, and it just truly, truly like has everything. And I 100% agree with you. It's definitely like a love letter to stunt acting, which is funny because we talked about this a while ago, especially at the Oscars. They did that little promotion for it, and they talked about stunt acting and everything, um and we talked about like how do some people get awards, and like how would that work and all of that stuff. And it's funny because in the beginning of the film, Ryan Gosling even says, like, and he's his character, right? He says, you don't even know we're there because you're not supposed to, right? And I thought that was perfect. It was like, that's exactly it, right? Like, they're kind of these, like, hidden, like, crew members, if you will, right? Like, you know that they're there because the crew is what makes the film happen, just like stuntmen are what make the stunts happen. You know that it's not the actor doing it most of the time, right? And it's just like they're these like, I don't know, like hidden crew members. That's the only way I can describe it. So I loved it. It was yeah, it's super big, and like the sound is like it will shake your chair in the theater. We saw it in like a Dolby cinema last night, so it was like that was definitely an experience. And yeah, it's just fun. Like it's fun. Like get out to the movies and like go see something fun. It's like I feel like we had a lot of fun at the cinema this like past summer with like Barbie, and then there was like the serious one like with Oppenheimer, right? But like this one is just like it's just fun for everyone. Like you said, there was people in the theater last night in my show that were teenagers. There was people in there that were like, you know, in their later years, let's just say that.
Mm-hmm.
So, and like I said, everyone was laughing and having a great time. So I can't recommend it enough. It was great. It was great.
I will say if I have like one criticism, which I wouldn't even call it a criticism, but I wish it honestly leaned into the romance maybe even a little bit more. Like I feel like in the moments when Ryan and Emily weren't together, I kind of missed them being together and I
Yeah.
wanted to see more of like what their chemistry looked like. But no, I really enjoyed it, which kind of lends me what I wanted to talk about is like Ryan Gosling and his sort of awards trajectory in general, because what I find so interesting about Ryan is that like he stands out amongst all of his peers because like he gets his first Oscar nomination for Half Nelson, which is like this like random indie movie, and he was the sole nominee I believe from that film. And then he like, doesn't get in for Blue Valentine, doesn't get in for Lars and the Real Girl. And then he like comes back for La La Land, and then he obviously got like the Barbie nomination, which is like a pure comedy. Because it's interesting with La La Land. I mean, that was like the perceived best picture of the year and all these things. So, and you could argue that because Emma was such a strong, not that he didn't deserve the nomination, but that's a nomination that very much makes sense. But even with Barbie, with like Margot not getting in, the fact that he had the strength as like his own individual thing to get in there. And it's interesting because a lot of his contemporaries have not had the same. I mean, Jake Gyllenhaal has not been back to the Oscars since Brokeback. Tom Hardy has gotten the one nomination and has not been able to find his way back. You look at like the Chris's, none of them have been able to find an awards path in. So there's something so interesting about the fact that he's kind of in a class by himself in terms of like actors that are working right now, and the fact that he is having this like kind of moment of his career now is interesting. I just wanted to know, like, what do you think about where he finds himself, because it's so rare to have an actor that can do both and have like even something like The Nice Guys, right, and then still come back and do darker sort of awards films in the vein of like a Blue Valentine or sort of the stuff that he did when he was a bit younger.
Well, it's funny that you say that because we were sitting in the theater last night and my boyfriend like leaned over, and this is maybe, I don't know, 15 minutes into the film. And he was like, I hope Ryan Gosling never takes himself seriously again, because it's just like, it just seems like he's having so much fun and really like leaning into like having fun with the films he's making. But yeah, I just think he's in like kind of like a class of his own. Like you said, like he's kind of doing it all right now. And I can't think of anyone else who is even close to having
Because even if you look at like Eddie Redmayne or Rami Malek, who like have had their Oscars already, they've never been able to come back. It's like, but there's something about Ryan where it's like they kind of were in a space where we're embracing everything he does, where it's like, okay, you can do your comedy and have fun, and then when he does take a more dramatic turn, like he has like that cachet. And usually like it's interesting because with actresses, like the younger ingenue gets embraced quite often, but then with actors, we sort of wait for them to get older before you have to be Leo and do your Revenant before. So it's interesting that he's kind of like, again, stands on his own of like the good looking, dashing leading man that has been embraced. I don't know, I find that really interesting. And I feel like we were talking about this earlier, but I would love to do an episode with you where we do like our predictions of like actors that their Oscars coming soon. And I feel like he just needs like the timing has not been right, but like with the right thing, like he's right there. Like I feel it in my bones.
No, 100%, I agree. And honestly, like it's interesting that you're talking about how like the actors that haven't been able to come back. Like is it his charm? I don't know. I just think he's so charming, and I think like that honestly is a huge part of it. Like he is just charming everyone everywhere with everything, like whether he's just being himself or not. I just think like you said, and he's like really in his element right now. and his time will definitely come, I think. Maybe
Mhm.
multiple times. I don't know. I think it
I
could
mean,
happen.
well, and it's interesting because he just gave an interview where he was talking about how because he has like young children, he picks movies based on like what he thinks would be best because he doesn't want to bring in like dark energy when he has young
Mhm.
kids at home. So like I wonder if down the line as they get older, maybe he will go back to like darker whatever, but like whatever decisions he's making right now, keep making them
Yes.
because I feel like it's working.
Yes.
Um
100%.
Yeah, so I think I mean, I would love to see both Ryan. I think he's gonna show up at the Globes. Like they love him. I can see a Ryan got at the very minimum. I feel like a Globes nomination for him.
Yeah, I agree. I think I I mean, do we think he could get nominated for this and, like, win?
At the Globes, potentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that's his like one of his he won for La La Land, so he's won there
Yeah,
before.
that's true.
And I feel like everyone wants him at their show, like they want
Yes.
him to have another Ken moment, like so
Yeah.
I can see that happen, and that's again why I want the movie to do better. A because it's really good and it deserves it, but I want it to stay sort of in the conversation. Um,
Yeah, I
yeah.
think it yeah, it's funny because I didn't really even look to see, like you said, like, the numbers that it should have done and all of that, because to me, it was like every showing that I looked for yesterday was, like, full not completely full, but, like, way fuller than a lot of the movies I go see, and,
Mm.
I don't know, is it also, like, a weird time of year where it's, like, not truly, like, summer blockbuster time yet, and it's just this kind of weird in between time? You know how there's, like, certain times when movies get released, like, do you feel like it's in the like, it's released at a weird time? Because I kinda do.
I think trying to market it as like a full summer blockbuster was probably a mistake. Like I
Yeah.
think if they would have put it out in March, like right after the South by Buzz, when it was like a little bit died down, it probably would have done better. Because we also have like Apes coming out next weekend, which is going to be
Mm.
huge.
Yeah.
So like it's not going to have as much of an opportunity to have legs as if it was out earlier in the year when it was like less competitive.
Yeah.
Um,
And like you said, I think a lot of people will just they think it's one that they need to wait and just, "Oh, I'll just wait until it comes to streaming."
mhm.
We're here to tell you not to do that, but I do think a lot more people will see it when it comes to streaming.
Mhm.
Like, everyone will probably watch it
But
then.
it's gonna turn into the Nice Guys 2.0 where people are gonna be like, "Well, why didn't we get a Fall Guys sequel?" And I'm like, "Well, you didn't get the sequel because you didn't go see it."
Right, right, exactly, yes, so, yes, we're here to tell you always to go to the oh, so I guess there was also a really nice, like, little message you know how they've been doing, like, messages, like, from the directors and actors and stuff before? I don't know if they did this at South by with
Mm-mm.
Fall Guy, so it was the director and, Ryan Gosling, and I can't think of the director's name off the top of my head now,
David Leitch, is that how
yes,
you
yes,
say it?
yes,
Yeah.
um and they did, like, a really funny, like, message before the movie started about, like, coming to the movies and seeing it in the cinema and, like, blah, blah, blah. But again, he's so charming. Like, I don't know if there's a way you can look at or you'll see it when you go see it again in the theater. Honestly, depending on how long it stays in the theater, I'm gonna go see it again because I really loved it that much.
I mean, yeah. It's a
So
perfect like discount Tuesday. You had a hard day at work and you want to do something to unwind, go see the Fall Guy for like half price.
100%, yeah.
Erica, you've given me a perfect transition, which is like movies to see in theaters versus streaming. Because
Mm,
one of my favorite movies of the year, period, in any category, was also a movie that came out this week, which is The Idea of You, which is a movie that absolutely should have been
yes.
playing in a theater and was available on Amazon instead. But it is so good. I love this movie. I know it is pulpy. It's a rom-com, whatever. I hate people who are judgy about rom-coms, but
Yeah.
particularly about this one because there's something about what Anne Hathaway does in this movie. Like the empathy that is shown to her character and the empathy that she is able to express for herself and for those around her that I think is so beautiful. There's something about the writing, it just elevates this beyond what is a typical pulpy rom-com, particularly what we associate with like a streaming rom-com, right? Because
It's
that's
so
kind of
much,
yeah.
it's so much more mature. It's so mature. I can't explain it with any other word. Like, and I mean that in like the best way. It's like you said, the way it deals with like it also has like some real serious like conversations in it. Um, I mean, Anne Hathaway, like she just I adore her, and she more than anything swept me off my feet. I was completely like this is one that I was really looking forward to as well. And there's always that thing when you're really looking forward to something that you're like, please don't disappoint me. Like, please, please, please. I built this up in my head to be so great. And again, it totally met my expectations. Um, she just blew me away. Like, honestly, I love her, and she's one of those people that like can do no wrong to me. It's like, and she's like, kind of almost anything she's in, I'll see. I'm trying to think if there's anything of hers that I haven't seen, but she just was talk about charming. She was charming. And it was one of those things too where you're like, okay, is this gonna work? Is this gonna work? And it was like totally believable. And like again, it just felt so mature. It seems like super rewatchable. Like I can't wait to watch it again too. Like that's one of those. It had like the perfect amount of spice. It was just like, you're watching her and like she's super relatable and like living her best life, and you want it for her, like you're not like jealous and at all. Like you want this for her.
And for people who might not be familiar with the plot of The Idea of You, it's basically this mom who takes her daughter to Coachella, and she meets this Harry Styles coded pop star, and she's 40 and he's what, like 24? Is
Yeah,
that it's
something like
16?
that.
They're 16
Yeah.
years apart, and they have this like romance, but they end up like genuinely falling for each other. And the reason why I sort of started my little spiel about like people being judgmental about rom-coms is because this one was where initially I was like, I judged it. I mean, because I had heard about the book, and the book is more is pulpy, and I was like, why is of all the rom-com books, which I read a lot of romance in my reading life as well.
Yep.
So I was like, why is this the one that's being adapted? And I was like, this age difference is icky and all these kinds of things. But there's something about the way that they adapted it that just works. And I think it's because they really fleshed out both characters, and you really understand where the connection is coming from, and the fact that it is genuine connection.
Yeah.
And to your point, like I feel like these topics of like the age gap and sort of how if it was a man that was doing this, like nobody would care. But and sort of the sexism and all these things, and all of it's dealt with such maturity and empathy.
So did you read this book? Did you read the book?
I didn't, and I'm not going to, because apparently in the book he's 20 in the book, and she's like, so the age gap is even weirder because he's much younger in the book.
Oh, interesting.
And,
okay.
And the ending is completely different.
Yeah. So I downloaded it to my Kindle, but I hadn't read it. This was like months ago, and I just like still haven't gotten around to it. But I have a friend who read the book, or maybe she just looked up the ending of the book, and it's much different than that. And I also didn't know the age gap was different, so that's interesting. So yeah, maybe I won't read it just because I don't want it to like take away anything of how much I love the film. So yeah, I was gonna read it, but maybe I won't. I don't know. And like I agree with you. I like read a lot of like rom-com style books, and some of them that like aren't adapted, but even if they were, I'm like, how would they do this? And I'm glad I didn't have that going into this one. And it's one of those that like, even like hearing the premise, like just of the film, even, not having touched the book, it was one of those things that I'm like, can they pull this off? Like, it was one of those like, and I'm like looking at it like, it's Anne Hathaway, so I know she can pull it off, but like, can the whole thing work? Right. And I do think obviously she's the best part of the film, but I do think the whole thing worked, honestly.
Well, and this is again leads brilliantly into my next point, which is I really appreciate how much like Amazon and Anne Hathaway, she could have taken her $7 million paycheck and just not like phoned it in, but she didn't. There's so much depth to what she's able to deliver. And I did a couple of interviews. I talked to the composer and the production designer, and they're going to be dropping on In Session. But yeah, they really invested like a lot of time and money in elevating it into something that just feels, I mean, I love the way this movie looks. I love the costume design.
Yep.
The music is so good. And,
Mhm.
you know, which, to talk about awards, like, it may sound crazy, but there is a way, and I told this to the Amazon team, please listen to me. Like, if you run the right kind of campaign, I see a scenario where these songs could be a part of the conversation. The songwriter, Savan Kotecha, he is brilliant. He's worked with like One Direction and stuff before, and he actually got an Oscar nomination for what was the movie that came out a couple years ago? I'm blanking on it. It was like the oh my god, the Eurovision movie with Rachel McAdams and Will Ferrell. So
yeah.
he's an Oscar nominated songwriter that they got to write these songs, and they spent a lot of time with Nicholas Galazine kind of prepping him, and you know, like him watching videos of how to be a pop star at Coachella. And I think it's paid off brilliantly, and it shows like the heart that's in this movie and the time that went into it.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to your interviews. That's awesome. I agree, and I think I agree with you that this should have been something that was released in the theater. I'm really bummed that it wasn't. I think it could have pulled a huge audience if it was. Not to say that people aren't going to watch it on Prime, because I think people will, but I feel like it might fly a little bit under the radar because of it. And like you said, there's kind of this like misconception, not always, but like, is the new like made for streaming like made for TV? You know, like you said, they could have totally phoned it in and not put as much time and effort and thought and all of that into this. And you can tell, like, again, when you watch it, you can tell that it's not made that way. But is there like a misconception that people think it is, you know?
I think when it comes to comedies, yes. Like, I think if you have, you know, the Jane Campions of the world making a movie for streaming, that's different. But I think when you see a rom-com that's like going onto Netflix or Amazon, I don't know, there's something, maybe I'm just speaking for myself. I don't think so, though. I think there is something that makes us think like it's like second tier or not as well developed, and that's not the case here. And can I tell you something else that I really appreciated about this movie is that it's so spicy, because what was the movie that we were talking about last week?
Challengers.
Like, there you go. It doesn't show, like, it's not it's because it's like PG-13, right? It's not an R-rated movie, so it stays within that PG-13 range, but it's so like the chemistry is just, and it's like
Off the charts. Yeah,
off the charts. And when I was watching it at South by, I'd never seen any of the that I've been lucky enough to see at film festivals. I don't think I've ever seen like a romance, so I'd never seen like sexy scenes with like 1,000 people before, and I was just blushing. Like, but yeah, I think that aspect of it is so well done too.
Yeah,
just the way those scenes are handled.
It doesn't hold back. It's not too much, but it also doesn't hold back. And I think that's also like, again, really delicately done, because like something with Challengers where it led with like the spiciest scene as like the preview, then when you get into the actual film, you're like, this isn't nearly as spicy as I thought it was going to be, because the spiciest scene was already shown. And like, it's in the idea of you, it's done really tastefully as well.
It's done really tastefully, and you're able to really understand their connection through the way that the scenes are shot. Like, it doesn't ever feel gratuitous to me, and I feel like it really drives the story forward, and communicates a lot without actually showing us like major skin or anything like that. I found that so impressive.
I agree. It was one of those, you know, again, where I really felt like swept off my feet by it. It ended and I was like totally satisfied and happy with it. I didn't feel disappointed at all. Same with The Fall Guy. Like, especially these two films that like I'd really been looking forward to, really building up in my head. and they delivered. Like they delivered, and it was great. I was bummed that I didn't see it in the theater. I was super, super bummed, but what can you
Yeah, and
do?
again, I would love to see recognition for I mean, Nicholas Galazine is great as
Yeah.
well. Did you get to see? Speaking of romances, I didn't have this on my list, but it just was Red, White, and Royal Blue was this year, right? Or was that? Yeah, it was like February that it came out.
Was it? God, that feels like forever
It feels
ago.
like forever ago, but
Wait, is that right? Hold on. I have to look that up because I swear that was last year.
but
I love that one, and that
he is a star. Let me tell you, it is this
yeah.
year because it's. I think was it?
It says 2023.
Okay, never mind. Well, I think it's. I
Um,
have it in my head this year because they're trying to do an Emmy push for it.
okay.
So it's part of this Emmy cycle. But he, yeah, and he's in Mary and George with Julianne Moore as well. So I'm
Yeah,
super
it was
interested to see
August
where
of
his.
2023. Anyways,
Okay, there.
yeah, he's great. I love that book. That book was so fun. That book was
Mm-hmm.
so fun. I love that read. And I thought they did a really good job with that too. Yeah, he's gonna be somebody to watch, I think. I hope Anne gets some recognition for this. I think maybe, like
Mm-hmm.
you said, the Globes or the Emmys like could definitely be in the conversation. I don't know. Again, I'm just afraid it's gonna be one of those ones that flies under the radar because it only went
Yeah.
streaming.
But
It just
like and the music, the
yeah.
songs are so good, and I was like listening to them on my Spotify just on the road, and I was like bopping along to the songs. It's really well done. So I wanted to touch on as we transition a couple
Mhm.
other comedies that for sure I double checked did come out this year that I wanted to touch on. And the big one that I'm thinking of is Anyone But You with
Yeah.
Sydney Sweeney and Glenn Powell. Did you catch that one?
I did. I saw it in the theater. See, and I not to like diss this one at all because it was fine. It was one of those. It was fine. Um, but I loved the idea of you more. And then I look at Anyone But You, and I'm like, if I could have picked one to be in the theater, it would have been the idea of you, and not. It's like, how does that one get a release and this one doesn't? You know,
Right.
I don't know, but it was very, very much cookie cutter rom com. I think. What was the Shakespeare?
Oh, isn't it hold on.
Oh gosh, what is it's based off Shakespeare, and
It is.
I can't think of it now. Um, and it was just yeah, it was just super predictable. It's really just like Sydney Sweeney and Glenn Powell being hot on camera. It also had some very steamy moments, very
Mhm.
spicy, steamy moments that were enjoyable. But it just like it wasn't like I didn't think the writing was as well done as it was in like the idea of you. I didn't love it as much. It was fine. It was fine. It was a fun like went to the theater by myself to go see it. Yeah, it was, but it was so predictable. And honestly, the funniest part was the credits, like the goofy scenes at the credits.
Mhm.
That was fun, but I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't impressed by it. It was fine. It was fine. It was fine.
Yeah, I did really like it. I mean, if I was gonna pick one, I would pick the idea of you. But I did really like. I mean, I had a lot of fun like going to see it with my friends. Like I think that was like our Galentine's Day activity or
Oh,
whatever that we
fun.
went to. But I think what that movie and it's based on Much Ado About Nothing. That's
Okay,
the
I was just you see me
yeah.
trying to look it up. Okay, yes.
Yeah.
That was gonna
I
drive me
think
crazy.
I think what it does really well though, and like this is like going back to the 90s like the traditional thing of rom-coms, it highlights its stars so well. Like you kind of
Mhm.
see why Glenn Powell and Sydney Sweeney are
Oh,
like the future of cinema. I thought that was really interesting.
100%. Yeah, 100% agree. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, there are two people that I think are really at I don't want to say the height of their careers, but they're climbing the ladder, if you will. I think they're like yeah, they're two people that it's like you love to watch just be on screen, and with them being on
Mhm.
screen together, it's like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna go see that. Like again, it was like, yeah, I'm gonna go see it, but I wasn't super impressed like I
Yeah,
was with
I
the
think
other
it
two.
lacks the depth and like the heart of something like The Idea of You.
Yeah.
But the reason why I especially wanted to bring it up in like a Chasing the Gold context is because especially I mean and Sydney Sweeney, like she is so smart with the way that she's been like handling her career. I mean Immaculate was like a good hit and like a good moment for her as well. So I can see a scenario where she's in the conversation, but
Yeah.
also Glenn Powell has Hitman coming out this year, which talk about a movie that should be in theaters. My God, that is such a good movie. And then he has Twister. So like this is like the year that we are anointing Glenn Powell into like Hollywood superstardom, and that is going to translate somewhere. It's probably, mark my words, going to be at the Golden Globes at a minimum, but potentially elsewhere as well. But yes.
Yeah, I feel like Top Gun Maverick just catapulted him into all of this. Um, is Hitman also not coming to the theater? God,
No, that's gonna
I
be
just oh, it's just
Netflix.
Netflix.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like if you have a
Did you see
draft
that at
house or
South by?
something,
What did you see that at?
that was at TIFF last year, which I
Oh,
don't understand why it wasn't at South by, to go off on my mini tangent, because Glenn Powell is from Austin and it's a Richard Linklater movie who is
yeah,
like the king of Texas cinema. So
yeah.
it should have had a South by moment too. But yeah, so if you have a draft house near you, I think it's gonna be at a draft house or potentially other theaters, but it's not gonna be like in a Cinemark or AMC.
Yeah,
Shame.
there's one I think either in DC or right outside of DC, so it'd have to be a little bit of a trip for me to go see it, but that is one that I'm really looking forward to as well.
It's really good. So I think Anyone But You is going to be part of like the Glenn Powell narrative. Like when we look back and we're
Yeah,
like
yeah.
yeah. So the next movie that I wanted to touch on, also a South by film that I saw last year that came out this year, is Problemista with
Oh,
Julio
yeah.
Torres. Has that been on your radar? I mean, I know it's been on your radar, but uh kind of I really think that again, it's so like idiosyncratic, but there's something so unique about it and it has its own voice. And so if people are stretching outside of maybe major screenplay contenders, I really hope that Problemista shows up in that conversation. And then Tilda Swinton is just brilliant as like this, again, just like weirdo millionaire billionaire art lady, and she just does such a brilliant job. So if you haven't seen that movie yet, seek it out. And again, if you're sort of looking at your awards contenders big picture, make space for Problemista because it's really good.
Is it streaming yet?
I don't think so. I think it's on VOD.
Okay. Okay, yeah, 'cause
Yeah.
so it was very much on my radar at South by last year, so 2023 when I was there and we were there together. And that was one that I was like standing in line for, and it was like the lines moving, and I was like coming around the corner near the theater and it was like, no, they're not letting anyone else in. So I missed it, which I was bummed about. And I noticed that recently it was playing. So there's like two little indie theaters in Baltimore, the Charles and the Senator. And I noticed that it was definitely playing at the Charles, but I haven't gotten there to see it. Yeah, it was one of those that looked like cute and artsy and fun. And I've heard nothing but good things. Everyone that I've seen like tweet about it or like on Letterboxd and stuff, I've seen all good things. So yeah, it's one of those like as soon as it hits streaming, I will definitely seek it out.
Yeah, I was telling you earlier, even if you don't get a chance to see it in theaters, like just make time for it whenever
Yeah.
you're able to see, not just you, Erica, but anyone who's listening,
Yeah.
because I think it's definitely worth it. And then the last film that I can think of, tell me if I'm missing any, but Drive Away Dolls, the Ethan Cohen, Margaret Qualley sort of road trip comedy that came out earlier this year, which I'm gonna be honest, I did not care for. I would be interested if you did end up seeing it, just so you could tell me if I'm crazy or if you end up agreeing. But I didn't connect with it. But it's a Cohen brother behind it, and so
Mm.
that always makes me go. I know people are watching it, and I know people are gonna pay attention to it for that reason alone.
Yeah.
So it could pop up somewhere. Who knows?
What if without giving? Well, first, can you tell us what it's about without like?
So it's basically like these two friends, they like rent a car to do like a cross country road trip, and then it turns out that the car that they rented has like a something in it that it reminds me of like Burn After Reading in that sense, because it's like there's this thing that other people are looking for, so they're being like chased, and it turns into like there's like a larger conspiracy going on, and it has like a fun cast. Coleman Domingo shows up, Matt Damon shows up, so I feel like it had all the makings of a good movie. It just like I didn't find it particularly funny. And I don't know, there's just something about it. Like I found myself, I kept getting distracted and I just didn't connect to it. But I don't know. I can see, because I do know people that did like it. So I could see a scenario where like we're at the end of the year and like top 10 lists are coming up, and then Drive Away Dolls shows up. So that's why I'm saying it should be on the broader radar. Even though I think something like Problemista, like if I were to recommend a weird indie comedy that you need to seek out first, like Problemista would probably be at the very, very top of my list of comedies that deserve more attention.
Mm-hmm.
But Drive Away Dolls is in the periphery as well.
Yeah, it's one that really wasn't even on my radar. I think maybe I might have come across like a tweet or something that mentioned it, but otherwise you're the only other person I've heard mention it. So, yeah, maybe if it comes my way, I'll take a look at it, but it truly wasn't even on my radar. So,
has there been anything else, I guess, just in terms of like the comedy vein that stands out to you from this year? I did catch I watched the new Mean Girls on Paramount Plus.
Yeah.
And I don't really have much to say about that other than I did see it.
You know what? I love Mean Girls. Like that's like, our generation. Like I feel like I grew up with it. Have you seen the musical like the live musical on stage?
I haven't. I've listened to the songs
Okay.
but I've never gotten to see like a production of it.
So I got to see it not this birthday that just passed, but the one before. I got to see it at the Kennedy Center, which was really fun. It was fun, like stage performance, like a musical thing. I just don't think it works as a film. And then it's also you're battling that that thing where people don't really want a remake of like this cult classic kind of film that everyone loves, I think. It's just one of those things, like I think that so many memorable moments were taken out, or like things have just changed culturally, so it just like isn't the same, if you will. I don't know. I also think they kind of hurt it by not advertising it as a musical. That
because there's all those TikToks coming out of people like not realizing that it was a musical.
Yeah, and I think that hurts it, honestly. It was fine. I went with a friend of mine who I hadn't seen in a really long time, and she like reached out to me and was like, "I really want to see this, and like I thought of you, and like if you don't have plans to see it, I would love to go." So like we went. It was like kind of like a little girls' day, and it was fun, and like we had a good time with it. Have I thought about it since then? No. You know what I mean? Like it's
why did you mention this random movie? I think and it's an interesting point. I think the problem is like maybe if they would have leaned more into modern things, like it could have been like a remake for the modern gen, but it felt like it was still doing too much of the things from like the originals. It was like stuck in between, and I just didn't understand why. Like
I think that's I think that's a perfect way to say it, is like it was stuck in between. It was fine. I probably will never watch it again. Yeah, that's kind of.
I did like Renee Rapp though. I feel like she was the standout. Yeah, because I'm not super familiar with her, like either her music or just like I haven't been.
Do you watch Sex Lives of College Girls on HBO?
No, and you're like the 50th person who's told me to watch it, and I will get to it eventually, but I haven't yet. So unfortunately, Mean Girls was my introduction to Renee Rapp, but I was very impressed with what I saw. I think she's great.
She's great. Yeah, she kind of carries it, right? Yeah. Oh my gosh, you have to watch Sex Life of College Girls. It's one of my favorite shows on TV right now. Highly, highly, highly recommend. I think you'll love it. And then we should discuss.
Yes, yes.
um, yeah, I love
Um,
it.
so as we close out our comedy discussion, do we have any loose ends that we need to tie here?
Not that I'm trying to like rack my brain now and think of comedy things that we could be missing, but I'm not coming up with anything. I think we covered most of the things that are on people's radars at least. So
There's some big titles that are coming out later on in the year, so we'll do like a part two. But I think for right now, these are sort of our thesis for this episode is go see the Fall Guy in theaters. Go
yes.
watch the idea. I mean, yeah, the idea. I'm always gonna mix it. Yeah, it's the idea of you. Anyone but you and the idea of you sound too similar. So watch that on Amazon Prime. Maybe rent Anyone But You for like a fun day at home. Yeah, and support more comedies. So I guess, are there any other pop culture things that I want to touch on? Because I also thought about you yesterday, because I went to my friend Sarah's house and we like took out the lyrics for the Tortured Poets Department and spent the whole day listening to the album like from start to finish. So I want to say that I have changed my opinion about quite a few songs.
Ooh! Do tell.
As I've been listening, I feel like as I've been listening to it more and more, like I've been able to appreciate it more. And like my latest obsession right now is The Alchemy. Like I've just been listening to The Alchemy like on repeat. But I really do like, I don't know, it's really grown on me a lot. And like, just, is it ever gonna reach like folklore level? No, because I don't think anything will. I think that just stands up. But it's really, really, really grown on me a lot. And I also thought of you because we were with Sarah, we were talking about like, should we try to go to like, Stockholm or whatever to go see the show? But yeah, I had such a great day yesterday doing that.
It's so fun. It's so fun. Like, I don't know about you, but we're the generation of CDs, right? So like, I remember this is funny. I'm gonna like confess a little something here. Every time I get a new CD, I would like run into Target, buy it. You get in your car and it's like such a bitch to get it open, right? And you're like ripping all the things. I've never owned a CD that I haven't broken the case, because I've been so excited to like open it. I'm like pulling off the tape thing and the plastic thing, and then I just like open it and I'm just like, the case, like I always break it, right? And yeah, I have memories of like getting new Taylor Swift CDs and putting them in my CD player in my car and sitting in the parking lot with the little like booklet and like reading the lyrics. Like I have memories of that. That also tells you how long I've been a Swiftie for. So like I love that people still do that now, like with the reading the lyrics. I also have a friend who she's just like, I don't know if I'm like emotionally equipped right now to like listen to the album, and I keep telling her, I'm like, you have to listen to it. You have to listen to it. She's like, well, I need to like sit and like read the lyrics while I'm listening to it, and I get it. And it's so funny because it is I do feel like more than any of her other albums, it's one that you really need to sit with for a while. I think you change your opinion on certain songs after you hear them a few times or after you read the lyrics with them. Yeah, and I love that you're obsessed with The Alchemy right now, because I am too. And I'm also obsessed with Who's Afraid of Little Old Me right now.
Yeah. My Boy Only Breaks His Favorite Toys is the other one. I just can't stop. And this is the problem. So that's what I was thinking about, because we were trying to talk with my friend. We're trying to talk about like our full ranking of like Taylor, like her whole thing. But I'm like, there's so much that I haven't listened to because I will be obsessed with the song for like a month straight.
Yeah.
So I don't have the like space to branch out.
I know. But you know what?
Yeah.
Your time will come with each song. And that's the best part about her albums. And even like Fortnite and Tortured Poets Department, like I think they're great songs, and they're just like so boppy when you really listen to like they're like Tortured Poets Department. To me, it kind of has this like 80s vibe to me where I don't know, it's just it's so good. I'm also really into Lost on My Life right now, which is one that is just like I can't stop listening to it. I don't know what's going on, but it's just like so good. Yeah.
That should have been track 5 to me because it's like
Mm.
devastating in a way that like So Long London is not.
Yeah.
I find
I
Lots of My
agree.
Life like completely crushing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then also, so we are, for a teaser for y'all out there, we're planning a TV episode very soon. So I've been trying to catch up. So I like completely caught up with Abbott Elementary last night. I was up ridiculously late, like watching the latest episodes. But
Yeah,
that's what I've been into.
Yeah, I have a couple more to watch. I do want to tell you this that I did this morning. And it's kind of perfect because you mentioned Richard Linklater earlier. So I also mentioned earlier in this episode the two indie theaters in Baltimore, the Charles and the Senator, and the Senator today was doing a revival of Before Sunrise. So I texted you this, that I got to see Before Sunrise this morning, which is just like one of my all-time like that's like an all-time favorite for me. It's in that and Before Sunset. I kind of have them as one, or even the whole trilogy as one. It's definitely, I can't make lists, but it is in my top 5. That as one is in my top 5. It's just like, it's so fun. I love when theaters do revivals of old films and bring them back and just show them in the theater. It was so fun. It was a great morning. It was a 10 a.m. show. My friend and I, we got breakfast and then we went and saw it, and it's just such a magical film. And
What a perfect way to like start your day. Well, I mean, what a perfect way to do anything. Like, what's more perfect than like breakfast with a friend and then like a Richard Link. Ugh, yeah. Cameron and I did the Directors Chasing the Gold episode. I touched on Richard. I just have such a soft spot for Richard Linklater. He's from the exact same neighborhood that I like am from and currently live in, which is crazy. Like his middle school that he went to is like 2 minutes away from my house. So he's such like a representative of like Houston to me. But I have never seen a Richard Linklater, and I've seen all of his films, every single one. I don't have one that I dislike. I have ones that I like from varying degrees, but he just like does not miss to me.
I
just
know
him. And yeah, like Before Sunset, Before Sunrise, Before Sunset, those were like part of the movies that helped me fall in love with indie movies. Like, it's a big part of like how I ended up here. And I agree with you. So that's part of what, speaking of my beloved Discount Tuesday, I spent Discount Tuesday doing a double feature of Alien and The Mummy, which was delightful. And I had not seen Alien. I cannot believe, I'm a huge sci-fi fan, but I'd never seen Alien before.
Ever? That was your first time?
Ever. It was the first time I got to see it, and I got to see it in the movie theater, and it was such a great experience. I loved it.
Oh my God, that's incredible.
Yeah, and it was great because as like a major sci-fi fan, there were so many Alien references that I finally understand now. I'm like, oh, like Alien was the origin of this thing that I've seen over and over again, and I just didn't know that Alien was the origin.
Oh my God.
So it's really cool.
That's so awesome. Wait, so I have to ask you, like, did you know, like, was anything like, okay, the references that you know of, but I guess really what I want to know is what your reaction was to the famous scene where the alien comes out of.
Yeah. Well, I feel like I'd seen clips of it before, but what I was gonna say is like when I saw it in the theater, I was still shocked by it. I don't know if because I'd seen it out of context, like maybe I thought it was something else, or maybe I just forgotten that I had seen it.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, like there was like I was like shocked even by the ending. For some reason, I had no idea like was she gonna make it or not or whatever.
Right.
So I was like genuinely like on the edge of my seat, and I was so shocked when that happened. And there's like another moment where we find out that the guy was like a cyborg robot or whatever, and like the robot juices are going all over the place, and I was like, ooh. I had so much fun.
I love that your first time seeing it was in a theater.
Yeah, there's a lot of classics, honestly, that I have held off on watching because I'm secretly hoping that they like come back and I'll be able to see them for the first time in a theater. But yeah, as soon as I ever hear about like any Richard Linklater retrospective coming, but particularly the Before trilogy, like I will be seated.
It's my favorite. It's so good. It's so good.
Did
So-
seeing it on the big screen, I don't know, did something stand out to you that maybe you hadn't noticed before, or like just an element that maybe you had forgotten about that stood out or something?
So I just think like it's conversation driven, right? And it's one of those that like has really long takes of them just talking. And you don't realize how long the take is. And I think for me, I was definitely more like, oh my God, they haven't cut in so long because their chemistry is just so good and they're just on screen talking. I also think like there's some beautiful shots, of Vienna where they're at, that I think go a little under the radar if you're not watching it on a big screen. My first time ever watching those films, though, I was in undergrad, and we were studying that section, and actually my professor is like obsessed with Richard Linklater. I think he did his like doctoral thesis about him. And so my like professor kind of hyped it up, like he was excited for these films and, talked about it very highly. And so with the class, it was like you would do lecture and then then the next class you'd watch the film. And so in class we were watching Before Sunset. So you had to like your homework was to watch Before Sunrise before you came to the next class. And the movie was like impossible to find. Or maybe I just like, I don't know. I was undergrad, so I was like 20 maybe. And I like didn't do a good job of trying to find it. And I was just like, oh, I'll just like get it from the library, right? Because it was like, oh, it's on DVD at the library at the school. Like, you can watch it there. And I just like couldn't get it until literally right before class. And so I was like in the library watching it on DVD on my laptop, and it ended. And I was just like, so obsessed with it and so like, oh my God, I have to find out what happens. And like in hindsight, I was so glad I watched it that way, because then I immediately got to see what happened, where I don't think I could have went days without knowing, like even days. Like I'm imagining these people in 1994 or 5, whenever it came out, like waiting 9 years for Before Sunset. And I vividly remember being so excited to see that, like the second film, that I was like running across campus from the library to where my class was, because I was like almost running late, but I was also so excited to see the movie. Like I remember like running across campus to get to class. And that was one of those things where I was just like, I know I want to study film, and like I am in love with this, and then Before Sunset. Honestly, Before Sunset is my favorite ending to any film. I would say that and Silence of the Lambs. Those are my 2 favorite endings of any film ever. I just think the endings are like, they floor you.
Let's do a rewatch so we could do like a full deep dive into all 3 of them. Because I think the third one I've only seen one time.
The third one is not an easy watch. The third one, I remember seeing a tweet sometime that somebody was like, Before Sunrise makes me want to fall in love. Before Sunset makes me scared of falling in love or something, or makes me want to get married. And then Before Midnight makes me scared to get married and fall in love, or something. Like it was something like that. I don't know. So yeah, sometimes I like to just pretend and not watch. I've only, honestly, for as many times as I've seen the first and second one, I think I've only seen the third one twice, because I don't find it to be an easy watch.
Do you like not, because I remember I agree with you, I didn't find it to be an easy watch, but I really love it because of how real it is.
Yes,
I feel like
Agreed 100%. It's so raw and real, and I think you just have to be in the right mindset to watch it. You have to be prepared for that.
On that note, thanks for joining me for another episode of Chasing the Goal.
Yes, this was so fun. I'm glad we got to discuss all the fun things. So yeah.
As always, guys, please rate and review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you find your podcast. Spread the word. Send us podcast ideas. Let us know what you thought of The Fall Guy once we have hopefully convinced you to go see it. And if rom-coms are not your typical genre and you've given The Idea of You a shot, thank you for stepping out of your comfort zone, and let us know what you think. But Erica, as always, it's such a joy to get to talk to you, and thank you everyone for listening to our movie musings today. We'll
Yay.
catch you guys on the next one.
Bye.
Bye.